This will be a lesson on politics. Democracy is actually not within reach of the abilities of compromise. They would be seducible. So that means they reach the soul rather than the society. So if the society is still in democracy, not only does the format of the democracy have to change, the acceleration of democracy leads to events beyond its grasp. And this is what's called an oligarchy. An oligarchy is when a democracy is being toppled. So if a toppled democracy no longer has extension over itself, it reduces the size of its budget to increase enclosure back into a wage. And wages are what the democracy becomes. So an oligarchy is not all by itself a bad thing. It gives a lot of reach for freedom and a lot of reach for the dictatorship of the masses. So freedom would be the negative here, because freedom would deprive you of the ability to think. Because thinking is not freedom, it is actually the reduction of the esteemed vote. The voting apparatus of an oligarchy has to become an equivalency exchange. So the equivalency of a oligarchy under a democracy would still be a communal agreement to detonate the state. And state detonation would be self-deletion of all voter bases. So since there is a apparatus for the extension of democracy, not only do kingdoms get built into oligarchies, the oligarchy has to retain a kingdom until it is still within the dictatorship. And dictatorship is no longer a financial organization in a kingdom, but actually a apolitical semiconductor. And these semiconductors are microbits and microstatic to voting rights. Because the voting rights is in linguistics, it is not a molecule anymore. It is actually a sentiment. And sentiments are sedentary to the minutiae that apolitical regimes hold. So if a censorship campaign happens on a voting right, not only do these voting rights get denied and replaced with the imperialist form of these phases, the imperialist phase is equity to the reach that it grasps, which is to undermine utility as exchange. An exchange is a power unit in these systems because it no longer equivocates but allows for dictatorship to become freedom. And that this is how positives are formed. To get a positive, a number has to be drawn. That means there would be no democracy, but actually the ability to format a dictatorship. So, in a dictatorship, surplus values are converted into equivalency exchanges that do not allow for but demand that oligarchy revert back into its primeval stages. So, if a kingdom is to found itself on the destruction of a democracy, not only does the censorship allow for the positives to reduce back into an equivalency exchange, these exchanges are liberal in value to the surplus that they add.